Today we're going to discuss mechanical methods for cleaning wastewater collection lines and the use of chemicals to control roots, grease, corrosion, insects, rodents, and odors. Waymaker. It's one of the important roles you play as a wastewater collection system operator. Gonzo is our special guest again. He's the epitome of pity, the example of a non-example. He just can't get it right.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Thank you very much. I resemble that remark.
When a number comes up on the screen, like you see here at the bottom, it refers to the chapter and section in these manuals where you can find more information.
Here's the address and phone number where you can get the manuals and this series of training videos. You'll also find this information on the cover of this video.
Okay, in this section, power buckets, power rodders, and hand rods.
For cleaning sewer mains, especially large sewer mains where there's a lot of debris involved, the bucket machine is one of the most effective tools we have.
I'd like to show you some buckets for the bucket machines. Here's a 6-inch bucket. We have our 10 and 12, 18-inch. And over here we have our 30, 35-inch, 36-inch buckets.
Oh, yeah, but a powerful operator can make a powerful bucket out of anything.
The bucket machine is trailer or truck mounted. Trailer-mounted bucket machines must have a pintle hitch or other suitable safety hitch attached to the truck that tows the trailer to the job site.
A very important safety consideration when towing the bucket machine is to make sure the safety chains are secured to the truck in case the pintle hook fails. And it's also very important to make sure the trailer plug is connected so all the lights function properly.
The bucket machine has a steel framework on which is mounted a gas engine and a drum winch.
Okay, what we have here, this is the ramp machine, the bucket machine. It has a 30-horse air-cooled engine. It's very powerful, and it's also a very dangerous piece of equipment. For an untrained operator, you need a lot of training with it.
The drum is coupled to the engine through a controllable drivetrain, either a chain or belt drive combination or hydraulic drive.
I don't know if you can see this or not, but the larger drum is frame mounted and is capable of holding 1,000 feet of 1/2-inch cable. It's also mounted in such a way that it can be centered over the manhole.
2 machines are needed for this operation, and both are basically the same design.
Below the larger drum, which I referred to earlier, is the smaller drum. This drum is called the overnight cable drum. The reasons for this are twofold. The small cable is used to pull the larger cable through the sewer line, and then the smaller cable can also be left in a line overnight, as the cleaning operation often involves several days.
An optional addition to one machine may be a chute with rollers and shaker bar, which allow the material removed to be dumped directly into a dump truck.
When operating the bucket machine, it's very important that the proper equipment be installed in the manhole to keep the cable from frailing as it goes down the sewer line. It's also very important that the operator wear gloves and be aware that the cable can be frayed to prevent injury.
At the working machine, use a V-shaped roller of sufficient size to accommodate the size bucket being used.
Let me show you how this sewer bucket works. By having the jaws open like this, and this is the pulling cable here, this arm keeps that jaws open. And it'll slide along the main, and it'll be cutting roots and picking up debris. And when you get in to the point where you can't get any more, then you stop, you go to the back of the bucket, and you're working from the other machine, pulling the opposite direction. And when this tightens up, this bucket closes like that. And this arm right here keeps that, it locks it in place. And then you're pulling back the other way with a full bucket of debris, and you bring it out of the main and into the dump truck.
The number of operators needed to effectively conduct the clearing operation will vary, but at least 3 operators are needed and 4 operators are recommended.
Well, with me, I work alone. Not because I have to. I mean, I could get other people to work with me, I think.
Whether the working machine is set up at the upstream or downstream manhole depends on field conditions. In smaller sewers with lower flows, the working machine is usually located at the downstream manhole. Under these circumstances, there is little tendency for the material being removed to be washed out of the bucket.
By working from the downstream manhole, you're reducing the possibility of creating stoppages below your working area.
Often, the working machine is located at the upstream manhole when clearing debris from larger sewers.
The reason why you work against the flow is it holds the material in the bucket so you don't lose it to downstream.
If flows are low, the possibility exists of a stoppage developing downstream from the working area.
An important thing to remember about bucketing, you don't do this type of operation to relieve a stop when it's stopped. That has to be done by a rodding truck or a flusher. They have to be able to get their rod or their hose from one manhole to the other and it flowing. For us then to come in, we cannot, this operation does not work when there's no flow.
This method is one of the more expensive operations due to a number of factors, primarily because of the equipment setup time. In the process of bucket machine clearing, it is not unusual to find you cannot complete the job before the end of the day.
Marvin, have Albert bring that spool of rope up here, or both of you.
Okay.
Whenever you're bucketing, it's good to have good hand or some sort of communication. We use one of two things, a handheld radio or we use hand signals. I think if you can, it's always best with hand signals because you can't always rely on a radio. There's a lot of confusion sometimes. So we right now are approximately 200 feet apart, so we can pretty much use hand signals to communicate. To set the legs on this machine before operation, it helps stabilize the equipment so that when you're pulling on the bucket, it doesn't jerk the machine all around. Very important. Sometimes you'll find it useful to use a trap like this. And the way you'd use this trap is you'd put this in the downhill side of the manhole, and debris would come and hit the back side of this trap, allowing still the flow of the water to still exit out of the manhole and on down the line. And of course, you want to watch that the debris does not build up beyond the top of this here. Otherwise, you'll lose the debris in here. So all you want is water to go in here, no debris.
Roller jacks are installed at both the upstream manhole and the downstream manhole.
It's very important that the rollers be secured properly in the manhole so that the bucket and the cable clear the sewer main as they enter the main. It's also important to secure the pipe to the machine with a chain clamp provided.
This is the slant jack. And the nice thing about it, you can just lower it from up top. It sets very quickly and it works very well. It's called a slant jack, and obviously it's because it's a straight piece of metal with a wheel roller in the middle here. This can only be used on the downhill manhole, this type of machine, because there's no way to pull the bucket out with this type of roller. So this can only be used on this end.
Great pressure is exerted on these jacks, so give careful consideration to their proper setup.
In this operation, we've used the high-pressure cleaner to pull the quarter-inch cable through the sewer section. However, in many operations, a small rope is floated through the sewer section, which is then secured to the rope drum on the machine, which the operator then uses to pull the quarter-inch cable through the sewer section.
The rope is retrieved by winding it on a small drum.
This is the cable drum. Complicated piece of machinery. I got an easier way. Babaloo!
Now let's look at the cleaning operation itself. The cleaning bucket is ready to be attached to the cable.
This particular bucket that we're working with today is an 18-inch bucket. Once we are comfortable with the 18, it gets manhole to manhole, we'll bump up to a 21-inch bucket. Here we have half-inch cable. It's connected to a sufficient size swivel, and then it's connected to your clevis, or better known as your shackle. And it's connected in that way on both ends of the bucket. You have your half-inch cable with your eye connected to your swivel with a half-inch shackle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the bucket on the machine so that we can begin the process of bucketing. So if you'll bear with me here, I'll fire the machine up. couple of things you want to keep in mind is that you have your cable is straight. You don't want it all bound up around your shackle area. And you also want to make sure that the cable is on the roller down in the manhole. Okay, now we're having the other bucket machine getting ready to pull this bucket into the main. And he pulls until there's resistance. Once he starts feeling it kind of hold and bind up, he'll stop. He doesn't want to take too big a bite. It's like a little Pac-Man. You take a little at a time. He's just stopped pulling. Now I'm going to proceed by pulling back to see what we can pull out. Okay, we're pulling out about a half a bucket, which tells me that he can pull farther. The ideal is you want to pull out a full bucket and no more. So now, knowing that there's only a half a bucket he's pulling out, he can pull farther. So the goal is to get manhole to manhole. When you're pulling the bucket out and it makes contact with the roller here, you want to make sure the arms are square. If you don't, it can create a bind and it really is a problem. So you want to swing it around so that it's parallel with the roller as you pull it up. A key thing with these bucket machines is to keep them well lubricated. We just use regular motor oil, 30, 40 weights fine. Any container you can put it in works. This is what works for us. When it's not running, then you want to lubricate each time before you use the machine, and then halfway during the day, you should, just keep it well lubricated. Another good thing is a lot of vibrating goes on with this piece of equipment, and you should always take the time once a week at least to check the nuts and bolts, make sure everything is tight on it.
An extra operator is important at this end of the operation, even with the chute method of dumping. Often the operator needs help when the controls of the machine cannot be left. When extra help is not available, the danger of accidents is greatly increased.
Remove the bucket, attach the cables together, pull the cables back upstream until the swivels are above street level.
Once we complete this job with a bucket, we will, once we're comfortable with all the debris is out of it that we can get with a bucket, we'll finish this job like any other job with a porcupine. Here around me is a variety of porcupine brushes. We have anything from a 4-inch all the way up to a 30-inch. And here in front of me we have, which is very typical of all sizes, is you have a eye on each end, enabling the cables to be connected on both ends. And this would be used after your complete bucketing, and it's the last application for scouring the main to complete your job.
Don't pull the porcupine upstream because it has a tendency to seal off the line and cause the sewer to back up.
At the completion of this job, our cleanup will involve just the opposite of how we set up. We'll disconnect the cables, we'll pull the legs up on the machine, we'll clean up all the debris that's around the manhole and any that's on the machine with a shovel, and then whatever I don't pick up with the shovel, use some water, hose it right back into the manhole, and then finish off with some disinfectant.
Preventing stoppages during clearing should be foremost in the mind of the operator.
When using the bucket machine, personal safety must be your first concern. Be especially careful when guiding the cable onto the drum. And it's usually better to use a manhole hook to guide the cable and keep your hands free of that cable.
New or inexperienced operators should not operate this equipment without proper training and supervision.
Whenever operations or maintenance or constructions, there's any work done in the field, change of mains, all that information should be up to date and current in your field book. It's very important that the operators, especially when they're out here maintaining the system, they know what size main they're dealing with and what type of pipe.
Often at a given spot in the sewer line, the bucket may hang up. This could be caused by drop joints, jump joints, or other possible factors. Offset joints can turn into broken joints if the bucket is banged against them continuously, so repair may be warranted.
When bucketing and we run into problems such as misaligned joints and protruding taps, we try to set up with the TV camera to televise the line and locate the problems and identify them for further repairs.
If repairs subsequently are made, This too can be noted, and the next time this sewer is cleaned, the operators will have this information.
Record keeping in our business is very important. I prefer to do mine on a laptop. What?
Now that we have a safe environment for working conditions, we can set our rake here, and we're gonna go up to the top manhole, and we'll check that out. Also, while we're here, we're gonna set this trap to catch any kind of large solids that could plug the main. Okay, we're gonna put on this 5-inch auger to the end of the rod here. From there we run it in the 6-inch main, and we come back with a 6-inch saw blade, and we'll show you how we switch that up to downstream manhole. This here is the upstream manhole where we'll be working from. Paul is now installing the 5-inch auger to the end of the rod here with the special rod wrenches. Auger wrenches is what we call those. From this point, we put the rod inside the manhole. We're gonna have to back the vehicle up a little bit.
The truck is positioned so the hose is about 6 inches from the mouth of the main to protect the main from damage by the rod. The stabilizing bar is set in position at the back of the manhole. This prevents the hose from backing up while the rod is being operated.
This knob here is for our rotation speed, which controls the speed of the turning radius, rotation. Okay? Rod pressure, that's the pressure that's on the auger itself as we roll into the main. And these two knobs here would be our controls for the rod itself to go in our spinning control. Those are our two main controls that we use on the vehicle.
The truck is equipped with 2 counters, one on the inside which has already been set to 0.
And the truck is also equipped with a counter on the outside.
This reel contains a rod that is 1,200 feet long.
Over my right shoulder, you can see the truck in the top manhole. You run down here and we can see 200 feet away, our rake is set, and Peggy's waiting for the auger to reach her. As you can see, the debris catcher is catching debris. Before the auger gets here, we have to remove the debris catcher so that it doesn't catch the auger. 627 stop. We use these portables for communication with our own frequency. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and catch the auger with the rope so we can pull it out of the manhole. 627, come forward without spinning, please. He now feeds the auger without spinning. And we'll be pulling it out of the manhole, changing the auger. 627, stop. Stand by, please. We can now take the 5-inch pigtail auger off of the rod. Okay, we now have the 6-inch saw blades on there. 627, take it back without spinning, please. When you're ready, Paul, go ahead and spin it and take it back. So he spins it, makes sure it's spinning in full contact, and he takes it back. Okay, we will return to the truck, top manhole, and I gotta say that the truck does most of its root cutting with the 6-inch auger by way back to the vehicle.
As the rod returns to the truck, an operator lubricates it to prevent rusting. Some rodding vehicles are equipped with a drip lubrication system.
We're waiting for the auger to return to this manhole now. It's about 5 feet away. When it gets to the manhole, I'm gonna have to help it out a little. And it's now here. 67, stop. And you can see the root intrusion and how good this tool works for the city main. After we're finished up cleaning up, we get rid of all the debris and we spray the area with disinfectant.
With all of the modern equipment, it is still necessary to have hand rods available.
One of the first reasons is that hand rods can be used when and where other methods can't be used effectively.
Sewer rods are a simple and a quick tool to use, and are easy to carry on trucks to use during the day and on call after hours for doing sewer troubles.
Rods used in hand roddings are here to stay, at least in the foreseeable future. If a crew is essentially doing only hand rodding, at least 2 operators are recommended.
Usually rod crews consist of 2 workers and they never enter a manhole. Okay, we have a 4-inch screw here on the end with a long shank which is attached to 3-foot sectional rods. 3-foot sectional rods are convenient to handle, and then it's easy to keep track of how much footage you have in the main. And also they still do have in use some wooden hand rods too. These hand rods, they also make a reel that carries the rods. It rolls up on the reel, and then it's for transporting to carry the rods. And then when you get to a stoppage, you can break your wheel out, go to your work, put it in the main, fish out as much rod as you need off the reel, then you take it apart, and then you actually spin the rod by hand then with the spike. The operation of hand rods is similar to that of a power rodder, except for the distance of penetration is not as great. He's now putting another section of hand rod together with a coupling. They use just some a sewer spike to hold the rods while he twists the nuts with the nut wrench. Now he's just placing the rods into the downstream part of the manhole, and he'll be pushing it towards the obstruction in the main. Now he's pushed the rods in. He hasn't hit the obstruction yet, so he'll add another section of rod, and he'll keep adding sections of rods until he gets up to the obstruction. And then with the hand spike, he'll spin the rods, which has a screw on the end. He'll screw into the obstruction, and he'll just keep screwing into it and pulling back until he breaks the stoppage loose.
When using a hand rod, it is not uncommon to have a number of feet of bare rod exposed on top of the ground or street. Extra caution must be exercised using this setup.
Loose ends in a twisting operation can let loose and cause disastrous results.
Care must be taken not to damage flowers, shrubbery, lawns, fences, and gardens with the loose rod.
You don't have to worry about me. Careful's my middle name. What?
Bill, place the reel next to the manhole. When using a reel, whether truck-mounted, tripod, or trailer, always place the reel several feet from the manhole. This is a rod, this is the rod tube, and this is a brace or the yoke.
Holding the tube in place, that's not that hard. See, what you want to do is hold the tube at an angle like this, then move the brush, applying equal pressure on both sides. There, held the tube in place and got the job done. So the auger needs to be smaller than the hole. This ought to work.
Small gasoline units similar to this one are often used to power the hand rodding operation. Procedures for clearing and setup are essentially the same for all problems where hand rods are involved, but there are some precautions you should be aware of.
Someone can be seriously injured and considerable property damage can be done should a car run over and catch a loose piece of rod.
When hand rodding a sewer with a high head pressure behind obstruction, you have to be careful when the obstruction breaks loose because it can force the hand rods out of a manhole.
Yeah, that baby's clear there. Nope.
Chemicals can be very helpful aids for cleaning and maintaining wastewater collection systems. proper application of effective chemicals can be used to control roots, grease, concrete corrosion, insects, rodents, and odors.
Odors? No problem. Now this is a good place for a stick-up.
Professional collection system operators need to know how to safely handle and use chemicals. Worker right-to-know laws or hazard communication programs have been enacted to help you avoid chemical hazards. Be sure to read the warning labels on chemical containers, understand the MSDS, and obtain proper training for the safe application of chemicals.
Root control with chemicals is most important. It saves a lot of hard work and maintenance.
It's not a good idea to have the public see you mixing chemicals in front of their homes. Even though it's perfectly safe, the appearance of the crew in safety garb could be alarming. On this graphic, the pipe has been enlarged to better illustrate tree roots intruding into a pipeline. Roots hanging down from the top of a sewer pipe like these are either new root intrusion or old root intrusion that has been pruned. Roots grow back with increased diameters. As a result, serious problems develop that in time will break the pipe or open up the joint even more.
We have arrived on location. We need to set up proper traffic control.
You know, every time you prune a tree just below the cut, that your growth is thicker. We found a better way to treat roots, and that's with chemicals. And what that does, it eliminates the roots inside the pipe and outside the pipe. It's not as fast as cutting like with a rotting machine, but it's more permanent and it's safe for the tree. It will not hurt it.
Effective chemicals can control roots in a sewer for as long as 2 to 5 years. For assistance and guidance regarding the application of chemicals to your particular problem, contact your state water pollution control agencies, professional associations, or the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for recommendations.
If the chemical hasn't been tested to your satisfaction, don't buy it.
All chemicals of the herbicide, insecticide, fungicide, or rodenticide types require registration under the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Pesticides Regulation Division.
You don't want to use chemicals that aren't approved by the EPA. They're just not good for the environment.
All metam sodium products intended for use in sewer systems to control root growth are labeled as a restricted use pesticide, or RUP. This classification requires that metam sodium products can be used only under the direction of a certified pesticide applicator. Never put any chemicals containing metal chips or filings into a sewer. This material will most likely settle out in the sewer without reacting, or if it does react, may produce hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas increases the possibility of an explosive atmosphere developing in the sewer. If you're involved in a chemical testing program, here are some things to be aware of.
Chemical vendors should document their claims in writing, but remember, they're not going to show you the negatives.
Calculate the amount needed for the sewer to be treated. Work with the vendor to select a segment of sewer to serve as a test section, at least between 2 or more manholes. Take photographs or videotape the existing problems in a test section of sewer before the chemicals are applied. Apply chemicals as directed under the supervision of the vendor. Recalculate and verify dosage rates applied. Be sure to keep good records before, during, and after testing. Videotape or photograph the treated test section of sewer after the test to document the results. The test will require a period of time to measure the effectiveness of the chemical.
If the chemicals worked as claimed or agreed upon, pay the bill. The chemical should prove itself. If it doesn't live up to your agreement, then don't pay.
When your agency has a firm policy regarding the testing of chemicals before purchase, the effectiveness of your chemical program will be greatly improved.
Soaking, spraying, and foaming are often areas where chemicals fail to perform, and this is what makes us leery of some of the manufacturer's claims.
If specific claims are made as to results to be expected, then the chemical manufacturer should be willing and able to provide specific instructions as to method of application, concentration of chemical, and required contact time. Mix the chemicals according to the manufacturer's directions and safety precautions.
Before starting the mixing operation, it's most important that you have all your personal protective gear. You start off with a face mask and rubber boots, and the gloves are very important to protect your hands, and full body uniform.
What a difference a day makes, 24 little hours. How do I look?
Here are 3 important warnings. 1. Do not mix chemicals unless you have identified them and the instructions clearly require mixing. 2. Do not add a strong acid or alkali base to a chemical unless instructed to do so. 3. Do not handle or use chemicals you're not familiar with and are not qualified to use. 4. Do not work with chemicals until you've reviewed the material safety data sheet.
Now we're going to talk about corrosion control.
What you see behind me are 2 of 4 tanker trucks that are being used to perform a method of sewer treatment to control odors and corrosion in large trunk sewers. We are dosing these sewers with large doses of 50% sodium hydroxide, which are used to raise the pH of the wastewater from its normal level of 7 to a level very close to 13.
Each truck holds about 4,000 gallons of 50% sodium hydroxide. The 2 trucks upstream dump their solution. The trucks downstream add to the pH slug as it comes through, headed toward the treatment plant.
Now, this treatment is done twice a week, and the effect of this treatment is actually to inactivate or kill the bacteria that live in the slime below the water surface that actually reduce the sulfate and generate hydrogen sulfide gas.
Dosing with 50% sodium hydroxide is very effective in controlling odors. It has also been effective in reducing the rate of corrosion, sometimes by a factor of 2 to 3. It's important to remember, however, that it does not eliminate corrosion.
Corrosion will still take place even with very small amounts of hydrogen sulfide. Now, when they're finished treating, they have some residual chemical in their hoses. How do they guard against that being spilled on the street?
Well, they have a bucket they put underneath, make sure that it catches everything. Large bucket, any spills get caught in it.
What happens if they do have a spill, a small spill that occurs? Let's say it splashes out of the bucket.
Well, we have neutralizers that we can just throw on it real quick and then clean it up.
And what about the material they collect in the bucket themselves? What do they do with that?
Well, when they're all finished and they disconnect, then they'll just go ahead and just dump that back down the manhole.
How do you guard against the possibility of somebody actually working in the sewer today downstream?
Well, there's a schedule that's posted around all the supervisors so that they know beforehand not to send any crews out until after we're all done.
And what we have discovered over the years, not only of research but actual experimentation in the field, is that a well-operated wastewater treatment plant can absorb this half-hour slug of high pH without any operational problems whatsoever. What you're seeing behind me is part of the sanitation district's sort of last gasp at controlling corrosion of its concrete sewer system. You've seen some chemical treatments earlier in this program, and it was mentioned that they are not always 100% effective in controlling corrosion. We've experienced that problem as well. What you're seeing behind me is what we call our crown spray delivery system, with the acronym of CSDS. And what it does, it sprays a very alkaline chemical on the crown of a sewer where the corrosion takes place. We're currently using magnesium hydroxide because it is not a hazardous chemical. You've also known of it as milk of magnesia. What this chemical does, it creates an environment for the acid-producing bacteria that use hydrogen sulfide as a food source. It creates an environment that they cannot live in. They like low pH conditions. The magnesium hydroxide creates a very high alkaline condition, very high pH. The bacteria are killed, and in addition to that, The coating that is left after it dries presents a reservoir of alkaline material and guards against future development of corrosion conditions. We found with a single treatment, a sewer is effectively treated and guarded against corrosion for a period of up to 12 months.
We're at the upstream manhole in the Crown Spray operation. So as you can see, they're preparing to insert the spray pontoon into the manhole. Once it goes down, they'll put a rolling bar over which they'll drape the hose. We're at the downstream manhole of the Crown Spray operation, where the spraying has been completed and we are ready to lift the pontoon out of the manhole.
One of the more simple and almost ridiculously simple monitoring devices that have been used is a simple pH indicator strip. Not only is this effectively used to evaluate the condition of your sewer when corrosion has occurred, but it is used during our Crown Spray program because it tells us when a sewer needs to be resprayed again.
To measure the pH, a pole is used with a hook on the end to touch the crown of the sewer surface, both upstream and downstream, each at an individual time, and they'll bring it up and attach the piece of litmus paper to the end of the hook, and then they can compare the color resulting from the contact with the chart on the pH paper case there. What does that look like? Is that about 10? It's about 10, pH of 10. So we can see the magnesium hydroxide has actually increased the pH to a safe level.
What's very important to keep in mind is the Crown Spray program only affects crown corrosion in the sewer. It has no impact on sulfide that's being generated in the wastewater or on odor production.
Magnesium hydroxide is not caustic, that is not a hazardous material, but still, precautions must be taken. We've added an eye wash and a shower because no one wants to have milk of magnesia caked in their eyes.
As you can see, there's lots of ways to be a waymaker. That's the challenge you face every day. We hope what we've presented on this tape will be helpful to you. Gonzo and I will see you next time.